Ideally, what I like to see at the end of this process is I would like to see somebody lose 20 pounds, but eat as much or more than they did when they first started with me.
I really want to get to the bottom of why people gain weight, why people get fat, and specifically how to reduce belly fat, which is something that I think a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah. So this is an oversimplification because it's a lot more complex than this, okay? But generally, to make it very simple, it's an energy imbalance issue. So if we consume more energy than we burn, as measured by calories, then those calories or that energy it doesn't just evaporate, we store it, and we tend to store it as body fat. And the reason why our bodies store body fat is it's like an insurance mechanism, right? So that next time, if we don't have enough food, now we can feed off of our stores and survive. So we evolved to store body fat as a way to survive through famines or periods of time without any food. Excess body fat, obviously, we all know has negative effects on our health, negative effects on our hormones, our cognitive function. We all know that. And so the goal now for most people is to reduce body fat. We live in a time now where food is so plentiful and so easily accessible and so hyper palatable, and we're so inactive that obesity is a big issue. Obesity kills more people today than not having enough calories. So this is the big issue. Now, you mentioned belly fat. So let's go there for a second. Now, I'm going to start with the obvious and what you'll hear everybody in the fitness space say about belly fat, which is you can't spot reduce. In other words, I can't choose where I want to burn body fat from or where I want to store it. My body has its own, its own mind. And a good rule of thumb is the last place that I lose it tends to be the first place that I gain it.
Interesting.
Okay, so where do you tend to gain body fat the easiest is going to be probably the hardest place for you to get the leanest. So for men, generally speaking, tends to be the belly. For women, it tends to be in the lower body. And you'll find that you'll get lean in a lot of other areas first. Like in men, you'll see their arms and legs get leaner first. And then once those get to a certain leanness, then they'll start to tap into belly fat stores. So that's true generally. But there are other factors that influence where we store body fat. So here's where it gets kind of cool, okay? And the reason why I said what I said first is because everything I'm about to say doesn't matter if you're eating too many calories. Okay, so if you're eating too many calories, what I'm about to say doesn't really make that big of a difference. But if you are eating the appropriate amount of calories, you're exercising properly, and you're noticing strange body fat storage patterns, it could be a hormonal issue. And this could be a result of stress. It could be a result of environmental factors. I know you've written about this in the second to last book you just wrote. And it could be a result of possibly inflammatory type issues. So cortisol is known as a stress hormone. Not a bad hormone, by the way. I want to make sure I clear this up. I think everybody thinks we need to have no cortisol. Cortisol is an essential hormone in the body. It wakes us up in the morning, provides us with energy. It's a stress hormone because what it does is it's a burn hormone, burns energy, tends to pare muscle down, making us more efficient calorie storing machines. In other words, it makes us survive on less calories. It tends to encourage fat storage, which in the context of survival is a good thing. But if it's chronically elevated, now we can start to see problems. High cortisol levels tend to get us to store more visceral body fat and more body fat in our midsection. Hormone imbalances also can cause this. What you'll find in men, for example, with low testosterone and high estrogen is more body fat storage that looks more female. So this is when guys are like, it's kind of weird, but I have more body fat in my love handles and in my hips and thighs or the backs of my arms or in my chest area, right? Like what's going on? And aside from eating too many calories, there could be too much estrogen and too little testosterone. So hormones can definitely play a role. And here's what's interesting too. Actually, there was a study that showed that women who stored more body fat in their hips and thighs had higher omega-3 fatty acids in their system and had healthier offspring. So this, I think it points to these kind of natural fat storage places that we have as men and women. And if you store body fat in ways that don't, and we've seen people like this, right? Where there's like the female that she's got this kind of the skinnier legs, skinnier arms, but then she's got this like, she stores body fat like a guy. Or you see this with a man where he kind of looks like a pear shape or whatever. There might be some hormone issues that are going on there. So you might want to take a look at those. But ultimately, fat storage is a result of just you're eating more than you're burning. And you and I have talked about this on your show quite a bit of that fat burning formula of the burn versus the take in. And I like to talk a lot about how we can affect the burn side of that formula by building muscle, speeding up our metabolism. Think of muscle like an investment. Like you can make money by working more hours, or you'll hear a lot of wealthy people say, have your money make money for you, right? Take your money, invest it. You don't have to work more hours. You don't have to do anything else. That money will grow for you. That's kind of what muscle does. So if you build muscle, you have a faster metabolism. It doesn't require you to manually burn more calories. It's just burning more on its own. And it makes getting lean and staying lean much easier. So I like to communicate that because it's a much more sustainable approach long term. I think it's good to communicate lots of activity. We do need to move more for sure, but I also think we're being disingenuous by telling people that that's the best approach when modern life just doesn't lend itself well to lots of activity. You have to kind of schedule activity. Work doesn't involve lots of activity. The things that we need to do to earn a living and pay our bills doesn't typically involve a lot of activity. And we don't have a lot of time in our schedules typically, or maybe we don't make the time, whatever. So let's try to speed the metabolism up so that that muscle, that investment can burn the calories.
Yeah. I mean, so what I hear you saying is that calories matter, but what I think is so unique and important about your message, and what you seldom hear advocated by other fitness professionals, is that calories aren't all that matter.
Yeah.
That there are factors outside of your calorie consumption, like your environment, that can actually affect your phenotype, where you store your fat, the calories outside of the equation. Such an important message.
Totally. And, here's something else that's interesting, right? If I'm telling my body to build anabolic, active tissue like muscle, my body has to organize its hormones in order to do so. If I'm telling my body it doesn't need muscle and it should store body fat, then my body's going to organize its hormones in a way to do so. So if you're a man, for example, and you're not moving much, you're not very active, you're not lifting anything heavy, your body doesn't really have a need for lots of muscle. And muscle is expensive. It costs lots of energy. So your body's like, well, let's get rid of this muscle because we want to run on as little calories as possible. Remember, humans evolved for the most part, for most of human history, with very few calories around. It's very difficult to find calories. So your body will get rid of muscle. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, or the other side, if you lift weights and you work out and you train and you tell your body you need strength and you need muscle, then you'll have extra muscle. But in order to make that happen, your body first needs to organize its hormones in a way to do so. So to put it differently, a man with really high testosterone will find it more difficult to lose muscle, right? So what does your body do to get rid of muscle? It also lowers its testosterone levels, right? What does your body do to build muscle? It tends to raise testosterone levels. You see an increase in insulin sensitivity. Insulin is an anabolic hormone. In fact, it's one of the most anabolic hormones. It also contributes to muscle growth. Professional bodybuilders will use insulin as well. Growth hormone can promote muscle building as well. So if you're sending the signals to your body that says, we need muscle, we need strength, and you're feeding your body accordingly, what'll happen is your body will organize its hormones in a way to do so. And this is why you see, like, for example, strength training consistently raise testosterone levels in men, even men with testosterone levels that are fine, not just low testosterone levels. And this is different than other forms of exercise where just improving your health will raise your testosterone if your testosterone's low. But if it's already good, you tend to not see a difference. Strength training raises it regardless of where you're at because it's part of the muscle building process, right? So if you want a youthful hormone profile, one of the best things you could do is tell your body, we need muscle, we need strength, we need to move, we need to lift things that are heavy. So your body will start to organize its hormones in a way to do so. And I love that because it's such a wonderful selling point because you see now so many people are looking for the fountain of youth. And you can kind of make that happen naturally by telling your body, we need these youthful levels of hormones because we need more muscle, more strength.
So important. So for people listening to this, people watching this that are desperate to lose that belly fat or fat, subcutaneous fat, anywhere in the body, ultimately, where is the first place that they should focus on?
I'm so glad you said that, right? Because many people would say, well, cut your calories. Let's start there. Let's just cut your calories. I don't do that first because our metabolisms are very efficient and effective at adapting. You'll get metabolic adaptation quite quickly. So usually what happens, and most people watching this who've ever lost weight have experienced this, right? You go to lose weight, you cut your calories, and you do at first initially lose weight. You'll lose 10 pounds or something like that, right away. Then you hit this hard plateau. Like, what do I got to do now? I guess I got to eat less. So let me cut my calories even more. And then I lose another 5 pounds and then plateau again. And then they get to the point where they're eating very few calories and they're still 10 or 15 pounds away from their maybe goal body weight or whatever. And it's really hard to maintain. Like, okay, I'm a man, I'm eating 1,400 calories a day or, 1,200 calories a day, or I've seen women as low as 800 calories a day, and they still have maybe 15 pounds of body fat to lose. Where do they go from there? They go down to, 400 calories. Like, obviously that's not only is it not sustainable, but you're probably going to run into nutrient deficiencies and it's not a great way to live, right? Because we also want quality of life. I don't know about you, but sure, I love being fit and lean, but if I eat 1,000 calories a day to look fit and lean, my quality of life's not going to be that great. I enjoy food. I enjoy eating with friends and family and stuff like that. So, and it's really hard to maintain. So I don't like to tell people to cut calories right away. I like to tell people to keep their calories where they're at for now, maybe change those calories so that we're eating foods that are more nutrient dense, a little bit healthier, just so that they're more nourished. Oftentimes you'll find either nutrient deficiencies in people, or you'll find that they're, although maybe not deficient in nutrients, they're not eating optimal levels of certain nutrients. So they'll automatically start to feel better just by kind of trading foods a little bit. But don't cut calories yet. Let's first try to build some strength and build some muscle. And so that through that process, although the weight loss doesn't happen as quickly right out the gates, we start to see this body composition change. Okay. So, for the first month or 2 months, someone's with me, I like to see no change in the scale. And I'll be honest with you, Max, very hard to sell. Okay. Luckily, I'm very convincing. I can communicate pretty effectively. So I was pretty good at convincing people to trust me. But you imagine someone hiring you saying, I want to lose 30 pounds. And then the person that you're about to hire says, okay, for 2 months, you're not going to lose a single pound. And I don't want you to lose a single pound. Like, they're going to be like, yeah, I'm going to go hire the other guy that told me I can lose 30 pounds in 30 days if I just do what they tell me. So I would say, no, I don't want you to lose any weight. What I'd like to see is a bit of a trade. I'd like to see maybe 4 or 5 pounds of body fat lost and a 4 or 5 pound gain in muscle.
So this is what's called body recomposition.
Yes. By the way, you don't look the same when this happens. Okay, so like if I could snap my fingers right now and everybody watching this or listening to this could lose 10 pounds of body fat and replace it with 10 pounds of muscle, you would look very different, okay? Muscle takes up about 2/3 of the space that body fat does. So right out the gates, 1/3 of the space that body fat took up is gone. So you're smaller, you just weigh the same on the scale. You're also much firmer and you feel different and you look different. And so I would tell people, for the first couple months, I don't want you to lose a single pound. I would like to see some fat loss and some muscle gain. I'm trying to speed up your metabolism. You're probably going to get a lot of comments of people saying, wow, you look like you lost a lot of weight. People used to love telling me this. They'd come in and say, my coworkers keep telling me I lost weight, but the scale hasn't moved, right? Because they've done that composition change. But I like to start there. Once we start to see the positive metabolism boost, because now we've gained 3-4 pounds of muscle, lost 3-4 pounds of body fat, then I'll start the cut. Then I'll start to reduce some of the calories. Or sometimes, this doesn't always happen, but sometimes if everything works really well, I don't have to cut calories. At this point, we get the body composition to change. After month 2, their body slows down the muscle building and the fat loss continues to come off. But ideally, what I like to see at the end of this process is I would like to see somebody lose 20 pounds, but eat as much or more than they did when they first started with me. Because now I know we can maintain that. The problem The problem that I identified as a trainer, and it took me like 6 years to figure this out. I was not a great trainer for the first 5 or 6 years because I followed the common protocol and what you read on social media and magazines and what I thought was right. And eventually I had to be very honest with myself. I was like, okay, I'm failing. And I'm not failing because I'm not getting people to lose weight. I'm failing because everybody's gaining it back. And I first thought it was discipline. All these people lack discipline. They're just not, hardcore enough or whatever. But it wasn't that. First off, I can't expect everybody to be a fitness fanatic like me. Obviously, you're not a trainer. You don't want to be a trainer. You're just looking to improve your health. So I got to get that out of the way. But also, I got to figure out this problem of maintainability, sustainability. How can I help someone sustain this? And this is what I came to, which is, you lost 20 pounds, but you're eating, 1,300 calories a day. Could I eat 1,300 calories a day for the rest of my life? Maybe, probably not. I mean, that's gonna be really, really tough. So I was focused on the metabolism instead. And so what we would see again at the end is, I used to love people telling me, wow, Sal, I don't think I can eat anymore. I mean, I used to love hearing that. Sal, I'm eating way too much. And we're watching the body fat, go down. It's like, okay, this is a great place to start to cut now, because where we're going to end up is going to be a place you're going to feel comfortable.
So in those early days, weeks, you mentioned attempting to dial up the quality of your clients' diets, right? But is there anything else that you're modulating with regard to macronutrients? Like, are you telling them to maybe increase protein a little bit in that initial phase, or what? Yeah,
and the way I do it is like this. I don't tell them to count their macros. I do help them become aware of macros. I think it's important to know, for example, how many calories are in a serving of a common food that you may eat. Just because people are not, like, for example, I remember this as an early trainer. Back in the day, we didn't have these apps that you can enter your food in, right? We had there was a book, I think it was called Calorie King, and I'd have to go in there and look up the food or whatever. And I remember as a trainer, at one point I was trying to get real lean. I think summer was coming. I don't remember what it was. I was going to go on vacation or something like that. And I started tracking my calories. I'm like, man, this isn't working. What's going on? So I went in there and I saw that in there it had, I think it was like 200 calories for a sweet potato or something like that. And I said, okay, so I'm doing that. And then I saw that it said, medium size sweet potato. And I said, well, this looks like a medium. And then I looked at the weight and I said, I wonder, let me weigh this sweet potato. It was like 2.5 times bigger.
Wow.
So I just wasn't aware, right? So I think it's important to become aware so people know, kind of what a serving looks like. But I don't like to tell people to count or track unless they're like competitors in stage presentation sports or something like that. Rather, I like to go through the behavior approach. So I'll say something like this. I'll say, here's what I want you to do. When you eat your meal, finish your protein first. So eat all your protein at the beginning of the meal and then eat the rest afterwards. Now, the reason why I said this was because I know that protein is very satiating, right? It's the most satiating macronutrient. The second most satiating being fat, and the third being carbohydrates. But protein's extremely satiating. Just trying to eat a high protein diet, you'll find people's calories drop because it just makes you stuffed. This is one of the reasons why the extreme carnivore diet, you see people lose so much weight. It's like they can't eat anymore because all they're eating is meat, and they're just eating low calorie as kind of a side effect, right? So,
yeah, it's not that they're circumventing the energy balance model. No. It's just that they're eating the most satiating macronutrients that there are, right? They're eating predominantly protein and then fat.
Yeah, try overeating just meat. You hit a wall. It's really, really hard, right? By the way, I'm not advocating the carnivore diet, but nonetheless, I would tell them, eat your protein first. So that was one thing that I would say. The second thing I would say is I want you to aim for, depending on the person who I'm talking to, a half a gallon or a gallon of water a day. Okay. So this sounds like bro science, like gym science. Now, it's not because water is, magical. I mean, it is magical. We all need it, but not in the sense that you drink a lot of water and somehow it flushes calories out of your body or anything like that. But rather, when you're trying to drink a gallon of water a day, number one, you're not drinking anything else. Number two, you're not eating as much. And number three, you're probably moving more. This was funny. Years ago, when I was managing gyms for a big box gym chain, there was a device that came out called the Body Bug. It was one of the first, like, metabolism, quote unquote, tracking devices. And what you do is you'd wear it on your arm and through, it was pretty sophisticated, and it would measure how many calories you burn every day through both activity and skin temperature. And there was a few metrics, and it was actually relatively accurate. It's pretty cool. And what I found was when people drank a gallon of water a day, they would move like 1,000 more steps a day. And it was because they get up to pee more. So it's like, so it's like all these funny side effects, right? But when I'd have people drink more water or focus, and I'd tell them, buy a half a gallon of water, finish this by the end of the day, they would, as a side effect, end up eating less. And then the third thing I would do is I would say, don't drink that water while you eat. So while you're eating food, only eat food, no fluids. And number 2, don't watch TV or be on a computer. And that's because I knew that distracted eating, we now know in studies, I think, what does it result in, like 10, 15% more calories or something like that? Exactly, yeah. Yeah, something like that, right? And then the fluids while you eat, it prevents people from fully chewing their food. And it actually, so when people drink while they eat faster. They tend to chew, wash it down, chew, wash it down. And it doesn't give the satiety signals enough time to register. And so what ends up happening is they end up eating past what their normal satiety was. So those would be the few things that I would say. And then we would strength train, and I'd have them see me. The average was once or twice a week. They'd come see me 1 or 2 days a week. You can build strength pretty effectively, especially with someone who's deconditioned, with once or twice a week. In fact, there was a study that just came out that showed that 5 minutes, swear to God, 5 minutes of isometric exercise daily.
What is isometric exercise?
So there's 3 types of muscle contraction. There's the concentric, right? So my bicep right now is concentrically contracting, meaning it's shortening. Then there's eccentric, which is the lengthening. So if I'm like holding a weight but lowering it slowly, that's concentric. Isometric is just holding in position. So like flex or hold something. So they had adults who were deconditioned do flexing poses 5 minutes a day. Wow. Or pushing against an immovable object for 5 minutes. And they saw significant strength and muscle gains. Now, at some point that'll stop because your body will adapt and you'll need a little more. But that just goes to show you don't need a lot. So 1 or 2 days a week was it. In fact, the Doug, who's one of my business partners and the producer of the Mind Pump podcast, he was a client of mine, and he hired me, and he was not a novice. He was not a deconditioned adult. He had worked out his entire life, was super into resistance training, super into strength training, just thought he was a genetic hard gainer. Oh, I can't build muscle. I can't build strength. Hired me because he had some back pain. And I remember specifically having a conversation with him where he thought he was going to hire me for 4 or 5 days a week of exercise. And I said, no, I only want to train you twice a week. And I remember he was like, just twice a week. And I said, yeah, that's going to be perfect. We're going to do full body twice a week. And we should see some significant progress. And he did. He got stronger and leaner and more muscular than he ever did because we trained properly. And that's actually how the beginning of Mind Pump was like that, because Doug at that point was so sold, he approached me and said, hey, you want to sell something online? Let me know, because I have some online marketing experience. And
that's how Mind Pump was born.
That was the beginning. That was how MAPS, one of our first workout programs, MAPS Anabolic, got created.
Wow.
And then that led to Mind Pump after we met our other partners.
When I first started working out, I adopted what I think is currently called a bro split.
Yeah.
I think is that. So I would do chest and triceps on Monday, back and biceps on Tuesday, and legs on Friday.
Yeah.
And every day of the week I was training a given muscle group once.
Yeah.
Has the science moved past that? Did the science ever support a bro split?
Yeah. So here's what's interesting.
Like what I was doing?
Yeah, no. So I love this. This is a great topic. So in fact, this is one of the things that led to the creation of MAPS Anabolic, which I said is the first workout program I ever created to be sold. So in the early days of strength training, when you go back to the late 1800s, early 1900s, probably until the 1930s and 40s, strength athletes and bodybuilders all trained full body. They all trained full body 3 days a week. That's how they all worked out.
Wow.
And by the way, they were incredibly strong, very muscular athletes. This is pre-steroids. This is pre-protein powders, pre-creatine. Like, they didn't do any of that stuff. They just ate regular food. They had regular jobs. and they worked out. And I mean, Eugene Sandow, right? He's the model for the Mr. Olympia statue. He was one of the first, muscular looking guys. You can look him up online if you want. It looked really good. Again, remember, these guys were all natural. This guy did a 1-arm bent press with 300 pounds, just to give you an idea how incredibly strong these people were. But they trained full body. This is how they all trained. Later on, as anabolic steroids made its way into bodybuilding, you saw bodybuilders add more volume, more training. And one of the reasons why they went to body part splits is because, first off, when you're on lots of anabolic steroids, your body can handle much more volume than you could if you were all natural. So a full body workout then became impractical. I'm going to work out for 3 hours in the gym. So they broke the body up into body parts so that they could work out for an hour, but now it's just biceps instead of the whole body. So that's one. Number two, and this is the most interesting part. When you work out, and we can measure this now, when you work out, we can measure the muscle building signal that we see in the body through something called muscle protein synthesis. So you can actually see, like if you worked out right now and you did a good job, we would see the spike in muscle protein synthesis shortly after the training session, and it peaks at 24 to 48 hours. So 24 to 48 hours, it's at its highest level. When muscle protein synthesis is above baseline, that means you're building muscle. When it's below baseline, that means you're losing muscle, okay? And ultimately, the muscle building process is muscle protein synthesis above baseline more than it is below baseline. So you see this spike come up at 24 to 48 hours. At about 72 hours, you see the sharp decline, and then it goes down to baseline. And then a day or two after, it actually starts to go down.
Wow.
So you see the body start to say, oh, we need the muscle. We need the strength. It waits a little bit. We don't need it anymore. Let's start to go back down. And the average person, this process is about 48 hours. So 48 hours, spike, and then drop. Okay. If you're on anabolic hormones, if you're taking anabolic steroids, you have a very loud hormonal muscle building signal. In fact, and studies will show this, if you take men and put them on high doses of testosterone and have them do no exercise, they'll build muscle. Okay, because testosterone is a driver of muscle growth. It's a signal of muscle growth. So you have these bodybuilders who now started taking anabolic steroids. They now have a loud muscle building signal that is artificial. They don't have to worry about the decline in that muscle building signal like the natural athlete would. Also, bodybuilders tend to be genetically gifted when it comes to muscle building. And I like to say this and communicate this, especially to women who are afraid of looking too big or getting too muscular. When you look at the spectrum of genetics of muscle building, on one end you have like muscle wasting disease, and on the other end you have these genetic anomalies that are about as rare as like someone who's 7 feet tall. Like in everyday life, how often do you see someone that's over 7 feet tall?
It's very rare.
Never. I think it's like twice in my entire life, right? So way over here, you have these genetic anomalies that build muscle. And part of what makes them build muscle so easily is that muscle building signal stays elevated much longer. So you've got these bodybuilders who've got these great genetics plus anabolic steroids. They don't need to work the body as frequently. They can hammer their chest on Monday and wait till next Monday to hit it. Now, the average person hits their chest on Monday. Tuesday, Wednesday, it's building. By the time Thursday comes around, it starts to not build anymore and actually starts to go below baseline.
Because their muscle protein synthesis has then gone below baseline.
Yes.
And it's now in the zone of muscle protein breakdown.
Yes. And so, and here's what makes it hard for people to understand. Recovery and adaptation are two different things. Okay, so if you work out and and part of the reasons why you get sore when you exercise is you do a little damage to your body. So, oh my God, I worked out real hard, my legs are sore. Okay, so some damage. Your body's trying to heal that muscle, heal the damage. Adaptation is when your body makes it stronger and builds a little bit so that next time the same insult doesn't cause the same damage, okay? Recovery and adaptation are two different things though. So I can beat the crap out of myself and get my body to need to recover, but I can also set myself up so that adaptation doesn't happen. So all that happens is I break down and recover. I call this the breakdown recovery trap. So, and many of us have experienced this. We work out really hard, we get sore, and then we wait till the next week to work the same muscle group, and we're no longer sore, and we work it again, and then we get real sore, and then we wait till the next week to recover, and then we do it again. No improvement. It's like we're spinning our tires in the track. All we're doing is we're breaking down and recovering, but we're not adapting, okay? So full body workouts The reason why, one of the reasons, there's many reasons, but one of the reasons why it's most effective for most people is, number one, it allows you to hit all those muscle groups more than once a week. Okay. Now, there's one caveat. You don't do, you split up the total volume over those 3 workouts. So let's say normally you do a body part bro split, like you said, or whatever. Yeah. And let's say normally you do 12 sets for shoulders. So Tuesday is 12 sets for shoulders, and the next Tuesday is 12 sets. You're not going to do 12 sets for shoulders Monday, Wednesday, Friday now. You're going to do 4 sets on Monday, 4 sets on Wednesday, 4 sets on Friday. So you've split up the volume, but you've tripled the frequency. And what you're doing is you're sending the signal to build muscle and keeping that protein synthesis signal above baseline.
Wow.
So you want to think of it that way. How do I keep it up here? Okay. So that's one reason why full body workouts are superior. The second reason is there is mostly a localized muscle building effect with exercise. In other words, if I work out my legs, most of the muscle building signal goes to my legs. But there's also a systemic effect. And we see this. In fact, there's some really interesting studies on people who've had injuries where, like, if I break my left arm and I train my right arm, I actually get less atrophy in the broken arm as well.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Or if I just train my right leg, most of the strength goes to my right leg, but I gain a little bit of strength.
Gets a little bit stronger.
My leg, yeah. Or if I just work out my legs, I get a little stronger in my upper body, right? So when you're working out the whole body one day, you get all the localized muscle building effects, but then you get this loud systemic effect in the whole body because I train the whole body. Then the next day you take off, allow your body to rest a little bit, recover. Protein synthesis spikes. Oh, starting to drop. Wednesday, I hit the whole body again, and I can do it again. And then the other reason why full body workouts are so phenomenal is just practicality. The average person isn't going to not miss a workout. Most people miss workouts. And most people, when they miss a workout, miss the workout that they like the least. So guys will skip leg day, right? Girls, skip, arm day. I don't want to work out my arms, but I'll miss, make sure. But if you're working full body, you're not skipping too often. You go to the gym, you're working the whole body. And so you tend to be more consistent at working the entire body. Now, studies do show that full body workouts tend to be superior, both in muscle building, metabolism boosting, and strength building to body part splits. That being said, body part splits can be valuable for advanced lifters who train with so much volume that a full body workout just becomes impractical, in which case you still want to hit each muscle group at least 2 or 3 times a week. So you don't want to do the each body part once a week thing. You still want to hit with that frequency to maintain that consistent muscle building signal. But yeah, this was a big aha moment for me. I remember I was in my I want to say my late 20s, but at this point I had been working out already for a long time, and I had been training for a long time. Right, I became a trainer professionally at the age of 18. So I'm already 10 years in. I know some stuff. Been training myself for a while, and I'm a huge nerd about this kind of stuff. Like, I mean, at 16 years before I even became a trainer, I remember at 16, I even before I got a license, I rode my bike to the library and I bought, or I rented, I should say, books on Soviet, studies on muscle building and strength and supplements and chemistry. And, so I'm a huge nerd about this stuff. Well, anyway, in my late 20s, I was, reading and I remember reading an article on some of these old time strongmen. And I read an article about one of these feats of strength and how it was recorded and people were there and it was legit. And I was like, man, that's crazy how strong some of these people were. And I said, I wonder how they worked out. And I looked it up and I went, full body, 3 days a week. And then I said, I wonder how other strong, athletes worked out back then. They all worked out full body. I said, I wonder what would happen if I tried working out this way? And I applied it to myself and it was like a crazy boost in results, ridiculous boost in results. Now, the irony is I never trained my clients with a body part split because when I trained my clients with a body part split, they got worse results. I always had them train full body. And
Wow.
here's a little rule of thumb with trainers and coaches. Any trainers and coaches watching this right now will know exactly what I'm talking about. we're way better at training our clients than we are ourselves. Way better. So for some reason, the rules didn't apply to me, but I thought, oh, this works great for my clients, but I'm different. But no, I applied it to myself, and it was game changer. So that's one of the cornerstones of the MAPS Anabolic program. And if you look at the programs that we sell, the vast majority of them are full body workout based. They're all different with their programming, but they're all full body workout based.
But it does seem like a lot more work. And also, what about in terms of like the sequence of exercises? Like you have a lot more energy at the beginning of a workout than you do at the end of a workout.
It's true.
So does that mean that like you're starting every workout with legs? That just doing that 3 days a week doesn't seem like the most attractive.
Yeah, well, do you like working out your legs?
You know, I do, but I don't love it, and it's not because it's not because
it's hard.
It's not an aesthetic thing.
Yeah.
It's more difficult. It takes more out of you, but also I have like low back issues.
Oh, I see.
So,
yeah, that's something different.
Yeah.
And that's right. We've talked about this. I'd love to actually do an assessment, see if we can figure out what's going on. But no. Yes, you would start with the big gross motor movements. They have the most bang for their buck, right? So
hormonally too, right?
Everything, right? Yeah, I'm glad you said that. They've actually studied hormonal effects from exercise. And like a barbell squat will cause a testosterone boost and growth hormone spike far more than like a bicep curl, right?
Wow.
So gross motor movements are exercises that require typically more than one joint. They use big muscles. They tend to be the hard ones that you do. That's how you want to start your workouts generally, right? So generally you're going to start with squats or deadlifts and then move to your presses or your rows.
But you're only talking about doing 3 to 4 sets of squats.
That's it.
And then moving on
to
the next body.
Right. So like a typical workout full body would be like, and I'm saying typical because there's always individual variances, but would be like 3 sets of barbell squats, right? 3 sets of barbell rows, 3 sets of a barbell bench press, 3 sets of an overhead press.
But
and
like
then you can go curls, heavy? Triceps. And you want to use, that's another great question. You want to use a weight. First off, you should view your strength training as a skill. It's very important because it is a skill. One of the biggest reasons why people hurt themselves when they exercise is they look at it as a workout first and a skill second, or not at all. Like, let's look at running. Running has the highest rate of injury. Now, is this because humans were not meant to run? No. One of the things that humans evolved to do really well is run. A lot of people don't know this. Like, we evolved to be exceptional distance runners. We can actually outrun for distance almost any animal on the planet. Now, I'm not talking about the average person, but a very fit individual could out trek. Like, you're not going to outrun a horse in speed, but you could keep up with a horse or maybe even beat a horse for distance. Like, we're really, really good at doing this. We have these big knee joints, these huge glutes. We're on 2 limbs, which minimizes the amount of sun that's hitting us. We can breathe while we run very well. We don't have to stop we're really good at running. But why do we hurt ourselves? Because nobody understands that running is a skill. Like, we stop running when we're 10. Then when we're, our late 20s or 30s, I need to get in shape. And they put some shoes on and they go run. And then they don't think to themselves, I need to learn how to run well. They just think, I'm going to run till I'm tired, right? I'm just going to work out. And the first thing to go out the window when you're tired is your technique and form. Like, it's out, it's gone. So you just run crappy and you end up hurting yourself. So number 1, view your exercise as a skill. So if you're going to squat, if you're going to bench press, if you're going to row, if you're going to do any exercise, skill first. Can I perfect the technique and the skill? Does it feel comfortable? Do I feel like I'm in the groove and tight and stable, right? Does it feel good? Do I look good? Does everything look perfect? So that's number 1. Number 2, train with a sufficient amount of intensity to get your body to adapt. Now, here's why I'm not saying train until you can't do anymore or whatever. Sufficient intensity is very different from person to person. If you're not exercising right now at all, 10 body weight squats is sufficient intensity to get your body to get stronger, okay? If you've been working out for 5 years consistently, 10 body weight squats isn't going to do anything for you. You got to push it a little harder. So the intensity needs to feel to you more than you're used to. But always remember that it's a skill. Perfect the skill, perfect the technique. And if you go by those rules, you'll always train with the right level of intensity. And of course, as you get stronger and get more fit and get, build endurance, that intensity is going to go up. You are going to train harder. But of course, by that point, your skill and of the exercise, your execution is going to be really good. Like I can train with a high intensity and maintain really good, really perfect form. If you get somebody who's never exercised, I wouldn't have them train with high intensity. Their form would be bad at moderate intensity. So I keep them relatively low and keep this the perfection of the execution of the skill as my metric. And I'd push them until I notice the technique is a little off. Now we're done with that set and let's rest, and then we'll do another set.
I love that, man. I want to train with you so bad. And I can't believe we've known each other for such a long time at this point. We're such close friends, and we've never trained together.
I know. We
gotta do that.
Next time we need to schedule a workout for sure. It really does, when you train and with this understanding, it really does blow people away. And people like you, because you have a lot of experience exercising, you've been working out for a long time. The first thing that I get from people like you when I work out with them is, that's it? Because the understanding mentality was I need to go beat the crap out of myself. And that's not true at all. Inducing adaptation is not the same as beating yourself up. You should feel at the end of your workout. So people, if you ask someone, how do you feel at the end of your workout? They'll be like, I feel good. What do you mean? Oh man, I was exhausted. Like I had to lay down. I was sweating so hard. Like, no, that doesn't feel good. You feel accomplished, but that doesn't mean you felt good. You should feel more energy at the end of your workout than you did at the beginning. So you should leave the gym and be like, oh man, I feel great. Like I could do that. I could do that 2 times over. Like I feel amazing. That's how you should feel at the end. And that's typically the appropriate amount of intensity to train. Now that doesn't mean that there isn't a place for those super high intense workouts, but those should be few and far between. And much of the benefit you get from those is psychological, not physical. So it's, every once in a while it's good to push yourself to kind of know where your limits are and, what you're made of or whatever. But no, for the average person, my clients, I remember that this was a turning point, a big turning point where for one part of my career, clients would cancel a session because they were tired or because their back hurt, they didn't feel good. So I get a phone call. I'm like, hey, what's up, Susan? Hey, Sal, do you mind if we cancel today? I'm really kind of run down and I feel kind of tired, or, my back hurts a little bit, right? And I remember the switch when I started to really understand how to train people properly. People would call me, but hey, what's up, Susan? Hey, Sal, I know I'm not scheduled today, but I'm feeling kind of run down. Do you mind if I come and see you? Do you have any time for me?
Wow.
People would seek out to train with me when they were feeling run down. And that's when I figured that's the result of me figuring out, like, you got to feel good after. And then, of course, the psychological effect, like you look forward to working out when you feel better afterwards. Like, I do understand the value in pushing yourself real hard. Sometimes, like I said, there's some psychological benefit. But if that's every workout, you're going to skip workouts. Like, I'm not ready for war, week in and week out. I have kids, I have a family, I have a job. Like, I want to feel good. I'm not trying to crawl out of the gym. So there's that as well. But yeah, for the average person, you should feel really good. You should feel great. You should leave your workout and be like, I actually feel better than when I first walked in. That's how you know you had an appropriate workout.
I love that. Feeling good, starting to have a greater appreciation for what you see in the mirror. I love that these are non-scale wins.
Yes.
What are some other important non-scale wins that people will get? Experience once they get on this path.
Yeah, really your approach to exercise starts to change, because when you are in that beat myself up mentality, because we've been falsely led to believe that, I get the whole no pain, no gain and all that stuff, but we've been falsely led to believe that in order to be fit and to be strong and healthy and all that stuff, that you have to really feel tons of pain. It has to be grueling. You have to kind of beat yourself up and whatever. And that lends itself to the self-hate model, right? So, it's like, I'll paint the story, right? So, Mrs. Johnson wakes up in the morning and she goes on Facebook and, someone posted pictures of the beach that, they went to the beach yesterday, and she sees a picture of herself. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I let myself get to this point. I'm way too heavy. I'm disgusting. I'm so embarrassed. How can I let myself do this? Shame, guilt. That's it. I'm going to go to the gym. I need to do this. I need to make this happen. And then they go to the gym and they beat themselves up. And so what it does is it feeds into the self-hate. I hate myself. This is punishment. I deserve this pain. I deserve to beat myself up. Well, nobody likes to hate themselves. Nobody can hate themselves forever. In fact, if this is what you do, by the way, in the short term, it's very motivating and it'll keep you consistent for a short period of time. But eventually what ends up happening is you rebel. You can only hate yourself so much. And at some point, you say this to yourself. And how many times have you heard this? You know what? I stopped working out because I just want to enjoy my life. And this is such a strange thing to hear from someone who understands the life quality boosting effects of proper exercise. You want to enjoy your life, so you're going to stop exercising.
Right.
But it makes sense if it was a punishment to you.
Right.
It makes sense if you were going there hating yourself. Now, if you go in with the approach that I talked about earlier, where you feel better at the end, where you're practicing exercise and learning the skill of it, it lends itself better to this mentality. Same scenario. Miss Johnson goes on Facebook and sees a thing, and she says to herself, I haven't been taking care of myself very well. And, I deserve to be healthy. Like, I've been putting other people ahead of myself too long. And I'm not as effective as a person when I do that. Like, I know I can be better at other things if I just treated myself like someone I care about. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to take care of myself, right? And then you go to the gym and then you do what I said and you leave and you feel better. And it lends itself to that approach, right? Loving yourself, caring for yourself, right? That's a long-term approach. If I go to the gym and I exercise because I want to take care of me, because I deserve to be taken care of, just like my kids deserve to be taken care of, just like my husband or my wife deserves to be taken care of. Now it's something I want to do. It's no longer a punishment. Now it feels good. Now, why do you exercise? Because I want to enjoy my life. It's like totally different, but it's totally different approach that leads to that long-term success. That one's a big one. That one's a really big one because people approach diet and exercise from the self-hate model, and diet becomes restriction and exercise becomes punishment. Well, again, I don't care who you are. You can only restrict and hate yourself and punish yourself for so long. At some point, you rebel. And this is why, when people go off the diet, they don't just have one cookie, they have a whole box.
Right.
It's like a child rebelling from a teenager rebelling from their oppressive parents.
I know. And they are their oppressive selves.
Yeah. We literally create two selves.
Yeah.
And we do that to ourselves. So yeah, that one's a really big one. And, it's this approach, and it was such a paradigm shift, Max. It's like, for the first half of my career, I was really good at selling training. I was really good at getting people to hire me, but they all fell into the same statistic, 80% gained the weight back after the first year and probably 90% plus afterwards. And as long as they were with me, they were okay, but then they wouldn't be with me and they weren't. And then the second half of my career, when I figured this out, I turned people into lifelong people who exercise. Now, almost none of them, maybe a couple of them became fitness fanatics, but most of them didn't. That's, by the way, totally fine. We're not all going to become fanatics about exercise, which is totally cool. It'd be weird if we were all personal trainers. We need engineers and doctors and other stuff. But everybody, to this day, I still am in contact with old clients. I haven't trained them for, 7 years. And they all 2-3 days a week go to the gym, exercise. They all, found this kind of balance with nutrition. And it's all from this approach. And the fitness space has done a terrible job of communicating this. And part of the reason is I think that the fitness space is run by people who figured it out for themselves. And the way they figured it out for themselves is become fanatical about it. And that's just not going to happen for most people.
Yeah, I agree. You also get this, there's this weird conflation of body positivity, which we, I think, both absolutely support, right?
Yeah.
There should be no shame associated with somebody who's just getting started on their fitness journey, right? And God knows there are so many people today that are unhealthy, have some component of metabolic illness now. 9 in 10 adults have some component of metabolic illness, right? And so this isn't about shame or anything, but then you see this sort of wokeism within the nutritional community that's like, well, size doesn't matter at all, right? You can be healthy at any size. I think this is actually like, it's important to separate the fact that like everybody, no matter what size you are, no matter what shape you're in, is worthy of love.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm so glad
right?
you said that.
And beauty is completely subjective, right?
It is.
So like when you see, for example, I thought this was a really beautiful move that Victoria's Secret just cast the first woman with Down syndrome as a model.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that's amazing. That's fantastic. I think where I take issue, and I don't even think that these two topics are related, but they have become conflated, right? Is when we say, oh, that you can be healthy at any size, even
or exercise is fat phobic,
or that exercise is fat phobic, yeah. And look, you can. There is the possibility that you can be healthy at any size, but it's the minority.
Yeah, you can be healthier and less healthy at the same size, but so the data is very clear. Okay, obesity, all things being equal, is not as good for you. Or not as healthy as not being obese. Okay, that's a fact. But let's just put that aside for a second because I don't think that's super important to hammer. Let's talk about this body positivity movement and how it's become distorted. And it makes me upset, but I understand why. The fitness industry did a terrible job of communicating fitness in the right way. The fitness industry, or the popular fitness media industry, promoted this message of, well, if you're not lean, you're not worthy, or you're gross, or if you're a guy, you're weak, or you're not sexy. And we get these images and we see this, and this advertising is thrown at us. And, we're consumers, so we kind of promote it as well, but they're also somewhat responsible. And we see these diet pills advertised to us. Lose 30 pounds in 30 days and your whole life will change, and all this other stuff. And so it's a pendulum swing, and the pendulum swing in the other direction, but the opposite direction is just as damaging. Okay. Let's talk about self-love for a second. First off, love is an action more than it is a feeling. Okay. Like, I have kids. Okay. I have 3 kids. I know what the feeling of love feels like. It feels great. Okay. Sometimes my kids piss me off, and the feeling I feel is angry, but my actions still show love. Right. If my kids ask me every single day, hey, Dad, instead of normal breakfast, lunch, and dinner, can we just eat cookies all day long? I'm going to say no, because I love them, right? If my son wants to go to a party where there's no adult supervision, and I know, and there may be alcohol there, I might say no, and he might be upset about it, but that's me loving my son, right? Loving yourself is honest. It's honesty. It's not shame. It's not self-ridicule. It's not hate, but it is honest. So you can look in the mirror or assess your health and say, and be honest and say, I have not been taking care of myself. You don't say I'm not worthy of love. You don't say I'm a bad person. One of the issues with obesity is that it's a very visible marker of, I don't know, for lack of a better term, a flaw that we may have, or some kind of dysfunction that we may have. Okay. It's other dysfunctions aren't so visible. Like, you can't see a gambling addict on the street and know right away.
Well, if you're obese, I mean, the likelihood is high that you have an unhealthy relationship with food. I think that we often think about people with unhealthy relationships with food as being anorexic.
No, both of them.
Both.
They're both can be, absolutely, right? So again, it's very visible. You see someone that's 100 pounds overweight, and the average person can say, oh, that person's got bad eating habits. Makes them a target. So I understand why there's this pendulum swing. You can't necessarily do that with other issues and dysfunctions. And by the way, all of us have some. And by the way, I started in fitness because I had severe body image issues. My issue was that I was very skinny as a kid, and I had, what they would call, I probably would have been diagnosed with reverse anorexia, which is a real thing, and led me to do some unhealthy things as well in my life. So I understand. But loving yourself is saying, I haven't been taking care of myself. I deserve to be taken care of. I deserve health, good health. So I'm going to do these things that are hard. I'm going to not do these things that I like to do, but aren't good for me. Okay. Just like the alcoholic who says, ooh, that alcohol is a really easy distraction, makes me feel good in the moment, but I got to love myself right now. I got to say no, even though it's hard. Right. So that's body positivity. Body positivity is not saying, there's no issue with obesity, or obesity is all genetic, or exercise is fat phobic. I've even seen people in this space, and it's terrible because they're preying on people just like the bad people in the fitness industry prey on people, right? They're still preying on people, just in a different way. They're just wrapping their message in false virtue and niceness, but it's not. They're evil. It's just as evil. It's just bad, right? I've even heard them. I've even read things, really makes me mad when I read these things. There was one post, I don't remember who this was, but they said something like, the gym is a fat phobic, shame-filled space. Okay. If you're overweight, don't go to gyms. You're going to be judged, and it's terrible. And it's, I couldn't believe what I was reading, because having worked and grown up in gyms, the most accepting place on earth you can go to if you're struggling with your fitness and your health is the gym. Like, and by the way, the most accepting, helpful people in the gym are the ones who look the fittest and who've been there the longest, because they've probably dealt with these issues themselves. Like, there's this stereotype of the big, muscular guy in the gym that's going to be super scary and yell at you if you use his equipment. Yes, there's always assholes, so I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I'll tell you right now, the vast majority of the time, the big dude in the gym or the girl that looks like she's whatever, they're the nicest. You go over there and be like, hey, how do you use this machine? And you watch them take their time helping you out, patting you on the back and saying, wow, that's really cool that you're here. This is so awesome. I remember first time I saw this as a kid. I was 16 when I went to my first gym, and there was a group of powerlifters working out. Big, scary dudes, right? Super strong. They were squatting all this weight, whatever. And I'm over here working out in the leg press. And I must have caught their attention because I was putting a lot of effort. And one of the dudes stopped me and he's like, man, good job, And I'm like, oh, thank you. I'm like, I just want to be strong like you guys. I kind of mustered up the courage to say something. He goes, well, why aren't you squatting? That's why, I don't know how. And they took me in and they had me do a squat workout with them. And it was, super cool. Later on, I remember managing gyms and seeing there was this, I'll never forget this 49-year-old woman who I sold a membership to, who she had osteopenia. So almost osteoporosis, right? So the doctor's like, you got to lift weights. Luckily, she had a smart doctor who said that. So she was super terrified of the free weight area. Super terrified. He was
very prescient.
Yeah.
I mean, at the time. Just most doctors would just say, here, take a calcium supplement.
Yes. I mean, he was very, that's why that's why I want to say that. So I remember she came in super intimidated. Oh, the free weight area. I mean, this is the late 90s. So even more so back then than now, but, dominated by guys, very few women in there. She went in there. And she started using the light dumbbells and working out. And I remember I kept an eye on her because I wanted to, because I signed her up. And sure enough, by the second or third workout, the big dude in the gym pull his headphones aside. Hey, can I show you? Yeah, absolutely. And then before I knew it, she was like the queen in that space. Like she was like the guys were super protective and helping her out. And she loved it. And I remember she had said after a few months, she came in and she's like, I can't believe how friendly everyone was. They're so intimidating. So when I hear that message about gyms, it makes me really upset because it's one of the best places. And there's assholes everywhere, but it's one of the best places to go. And that message is so damaging, because I can only imagine being an overweight, teenager or person and having struggled, trying to lose weight, doing it the wrong way, hating my body, looking at popular fitness media, and then this message comes out. No, obesity's fine and you're healthy the way you are, and loving yourself means changing, that you don't need to improve anything or work on anything. And I could imagine just embracing that. Yes, absolutely. They're the enemy. That's the enemy, exercise. That's fat phobic. It's very sad. No, it's not the case. Loving yourself is being honest and working on yourself and improving yourself, but doing so in a way that is positive and healthy.
Ultimately, I mean, do you think that ultimately this polarity though do you think it's ultimately a good thing that, because, for so long we've had, with regard to like the media, right? And even Hollywood, this perpetuation of like one single, ideal, especially with regard to female beauty, but also with men, right? Like men, it's not that men are impervious to body pressure, right? So I feel like I feel like it's good that status quo is now being challenged, right? Like, as I mentioned, beauty is subjective. Like, there shouldn't be just one ideal for feminine beauty, right?
No, what's a great what I think is it would be a great remedy for that. When I was a kid, I was 12. I want to say 12 or 11. I went to Italy with my family. That's where my family's from, and we went to Sicily. That's where they're all from, and we went to a beach, and Mediterranean culture is it's much less shameful of their bodies, especially at the beach. So you're at the beach and 70-something-year-old grandmas are in bikinis or topless, right? And I remember the first time I went there, I was like, oh my God, like there's an old guy with a Speedo on or whatever, right? But then after the third or fourth time you get used to it and you start to get used to what bodies look like.
Yeah.
That's what bodies look like, right? The problem is that the bodies that we see that we often look at the most are Instagram, social media, magazines. And so we create, and naturally as humans, we compare ourselves to our surroundings. Like, imagine if you grew up in the NBA. Imagine if all you knew was the NBA. You'd be like, I'm the shortest person on earth.
Yeah.
You're a 6 foot tall guy, right?
Yeah.
You're tall, you're considered tall.
Yeah.
You would think you're the shortest dude ever. And you might even be insecure about it because everybody's so massive, right? So part of that is the problem is we compare ourselves subconsciously to what we look at all the time. So you need to protect yourself by not doing that all the time. It's going to create this false, kind of this false normal, bodies look like bodies, we all look different. So
and Instagram is so fake. I mean, it's been
super fake.
There's a lot of great, I think, things to have come from social media, but the fact that everybody now has access to professional grade airbrushing tools and body recontouring tools.
And health is a sphere that encompasses much more than just the way your body looks. I've met my share.
That's absolutely true.
I have met my share of physically looking perfect bodies that were very unhealthy in many other ways. Very addiction or relationship issues or severe insecurity issues or anxieties and depressions.
Well, it's like the ideal, in air quotes, body composition for a man, let's just say, right? Where your risk of early mortality, the development of chronic disease, right? It's probably a U-shaped curve, right? Like at the far end of the
you're right
BMI spectrum, it's probably dramatically increased, but also it's probably dramatically increased when you're underweight as well. So the perfect, like the Goldilocks spot, you're probably not shredded.
No,
you're probably carrying some fat, which is totally normal. Like this image of like the ideal as being shredded, right? Like in bodybuilder shape.
Yeah,
is BS.
No, you're 100% right. For men, you're once you start to get below, and this is pretty lean, but you get below 8% body fat, which is pretty lean. You got like 6-pack. You go below that, you start to see some really bad hormonal effects. You see effects in your emotions, how you feel, anxiety goes up, that kind of stuff. So for a man, you're probably looking at 10 to 18% body fat is your range. That's a pretty big range.
As an ideal.
For health.
Yeah.
It's a pretty, in fact, you don't see the negative effects of body fat percentage on men, all things being equal, okay, until you surpass 20% or so. So you'll start to see like the negative effects of body fat percentage creep up a little bit, maybe not statistically significant. After you get to 20%, then you start to see these, regardless of your fitness, regardless of what you're doing, you start to see these increased risks of, diabetes, heart disease, dementia, that kind of stuff. For women, it's 30%. And in women, you're, anywhere between 17% to 29%. You're again, all things being equal, you're totally fine. So this is huge range of body fat percentage. But I like to tell people to not base their health off of the mirror, but rather base their health off of how they feel, the balance in their lives. Do they feel fulfilled? Do they feel mobile? What about performance? Can I play with my kids without being out of breath? Do I feel strong enough to move some boxes? Do I lack pain? Like, am I devoid of like stiffness and pain? Do I sleep real good? And what that does is the side effect of that tends to look like healthy.
Yeah.
Right. So somebody who's healthy in those ways tends to look the way you want. When you chase the look, oftentimes we sacrifice all the other stuff in pursuit of the look. And the irony is this, aesthetics, you can achieve a certain level of aesthetics with unhealthy practices, but eventually your health will suffer and so will your aesthetics. So you may get away with starving yourself, over-exercising, abusing your body to get to a certain body fat percentage or whatever, but at some point your health is going to suffer, and then there goes your aesthetics. Or you can go after health, try to be healthy, mobile, feel good, good sleep, all the things we talked about. The side effect looks the way you want. Now you look healthy. And, here's the other thing too, by the way. What looks good in a picture often doesn't look good in real life. So like I remember learning this my first bodybuilding competition I went to. So I was a big fan of bodybuilding as a kid. Remember I said I had some body image issues, so I was skinny, so I looked at bodybuilders.
Did you ever compete, by the way?
No, I never did. No way. Thank God I didn't. That would have really pushed my body image issues in a bad direction. But I remember going to a bodybuilding show. I had a friend that competed, and I saw these super shredded bodybuilders backstage, and they looked like death.
Wow.
I remember thinking, ooh, they don't look healthy at all. And the female competitors looked even worse. And I remember thinking, they look so good in the magazines, but in real life, if he gained like 10 pounds of body fat, that's when he would probably, look his best.
Well, the faces usually look terrible.
And in managing gyms, too, I remember there was this 72-year-old man that used to work out 5 a.m. Most days of the week at one of the gyms that I managed. And he'd walk in, and he'd have this tank top on, real tall posture. He was relatively lean, relatively muscular, real confident, had this head of gray hair. And he'd always, hey, what's up, Sal? Hey, what's going on? Whatever. And, we'd talk or whatever. And I remember one day I scanned him in, and I never really paid attention to his age. I thought the guy was in his 50s. And I looked in the computer, and he was in his 70s. And I remember I stopped him. I'm like, I said, is this your birthday? And he goes, yeah. And I said, holy cow, man, I thought you were like in your 50s. I said, what's your secret? He said, well, I've been exercising for, 50 years pretty consistently. And I said, well, what's your workout look like? Like, what's going on? And he goes, I stopped chasing aesthetics a long time ago. I just want to be healthy. And when I started doing that, that's when I started looking my best. I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I'd see, women come in, same thing, right? Just vibrant and healthy. Sure they wouldn't be pictured on a magazine, but in real life they looked so attractive and so amazing in their 60s and 70s also. So yeah, it's we're not very fair to ourselves, I think, when we make those comparisons. What's the saying? Comparison is the thief of joy.
Comparison is the thief of joy. Absolutely.
Super true. Super true.
Couldn't be more true. Yeah, my personal no shade on the shredded ladies in the audience, but my personal preference is for a softer, slightly softer look. Still like fit, something that like evokes health and well-being.
Yes, like and that's why I say in person, because can you sometimes see or feel like unhealthy, but it might not be, maybe they're not because they're overweight or whatever, but they're unhealthy because maybe they have an unhealthy relationship to exercise, or mentally not so healthy.
Dude, LA is full of girls that have unhealthy relations with their body, with food, with exercise.
Yeah. So you know what I mean? It's so and what's funny is that we actually talked about this on the podcast a while ago. If you think of the roots of aesthetics, what we consider aesthetics, where do they really come from? They've actually done studies on this, and they look for universals across cultures, because you have different ideals in different cultures. So what scientists want to do is say, what are the roots of aesthetics? Like, what do humans consider attractive and why? And can we find consistencies across culture? And so healthy skin is one of them. A nice smile is one of them. In men, it's a hip to waist ratio, a waist to shoulder ratio. I can't remember what the number was, but there was a waist to shoulder ratio that was considered attractive, regardless of the weight. So like in some cultures, men were bigger, in other cultures, men were smaller. For women, there was a hip to waist ratio. I can't remember the number, but there was a ratio that was considered attractive, whether they were 30 pounds heavier or 30 pounds lighter, depending on the culture. Wow. So then what scientists did is they went and said, okay, what is this related to? Fertility. So women with this ratio had more successful childbirth and healthier offspring. Men with the shoulder to waist ratio, higher levels of testosterone, higher sperm count, right? So that's the roots of it. Now, what have we done with it? We've distorted and perverted the crap out of it, right?
Yeah.
So we've, put things in our bodies and, used chemicals and, done all kinds of crazy stuff. But really, in real life, and maybe our ideals change a little bit because we get so used to the fake, right? But here's the other thing too. I find the healthier I am, the sexier real health looks to me. And the unhealthier I am, the less attractive real health looks and the more attractive poor health looks.
That's a fascinating insight. I wonder why. Because it's like attracts like, maybe? Like you see yourself at whatever state you're in?
I don't know. I think insecurities tend to, come out that way. Like if you're like, insecure, guy, you might want the trophy looking fake girl or vice versa. Right. So, but yeah, health is ultimately where aesthetics comes from is good health.
Yeah.
So if you're healthy, you're going to be more attractive than you're not. And so if your goal is to be attractive, then you should just be healthy. And the people that will be attracted to good health that's real are probably also closer to being healthy themselves.
Well said.
Yeah.
Chase health, aesthetics follow.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed that conversation, you're going to love this one.
I don't know if you've ever heard the statistic that like the average American gains 10 pounds of weight over the holiday season or something like that. I don't know if that's totally true, but I would bet that a good percentage of the amount of weight that people tend to gain throughout the year is probably during the holiday season. So it's a good topic to talk about and discuss, strategies to avoid that. But I also want to start by talking about the real value of holidays, because I think part of the problem, for some people at least, is that they go into the holidays and they either view it as like, okay, that's it. I'm just going to go off and just eat like crazy and drink as much as I can type of deal. Or maybe the fitness fanatic who fears the holiday. Oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm going to bring my Tupperware of food, type of deal. I think it's really important to remember that the holidays are about the people around you, right? Mm-hmm. Being present with the people around you, enjoying the people that you love, connecting with people that you might not have seen all year long, gratitude. And it's important to remember that, because when we go into the holidays with that understanding, it's a lot easier to manage some of the, I don't know, for lack of a better term, maybe unhealthy behaviors that we can engage in on the holidays. Now, when I say unhealthy behaviors, I'm not referring to eating pie or having, a couple glasses of wine or eating, turkey and stuff like that. That's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to a lot, which, like, for example, something we've all experienced, right? We were at a holiday party, we eat, we're full, and we keep going. And then we're in pain. And we're like, why did I do that? I really don't feel good. Oh my God, I shouldn't have done that. Or, maybe you have a moment of awareness and you're like, why did I didn't even enjoy the food I ate. I just ate it so quickly. That kind of stuff. So, or just the negative feelings that you may have afterwards, the shame, the using exercise as a punishment afterwards. You'll see this a lot, obviously, in January. So I worked in the gym business for decades. That's where I was born, right? But at least my fitness career was born there. In January, gyms typically, especially big box gyms, will see about a 50% increase in traffic and in revenue. So it's a huge surge of people coming in, and it's probably from, the guilt and the shame and the whatever from the holidays, and then maybe also combine that with, it's a new year, new me type of deal. And so, I want to talk about how we can really enjoy the holidays in healthy ways, understand what health really means, because it's much more than just eating the right foods and exercising and, optimizing all these different things. I think those are important things to talk about. And then the strategies that I like to discuss, Max, typically revolve around behaviors and not so much around counting calories and macronutrients and avoid this food and, don't eat that kind of stuff. Because I think that usually, at least in my experience training people, that leads to behaviors and feelings that are not, they're not beneficial in terms of our health, our weight, and that kind of stuff. It tends to be the opposite. So I think we should start with, I think the context of health. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah. What does it mean to you?
Yeah. So, and you're really good at talking about this. That's why I enjoy talking to you so much. There was a study a while, I don't remember where the study was done, but they showed that having poor relationships in your life was as bad for your health as smoking. It was something like 12 cigarettes a day or a pack of cigarettes a day or something like that, right?
Wow.
Just to kind of show you like how detrimental having bad relationships can be to your life. And of course, I'm sure that comes from the stress or the lack of the positive things you get from having good relationships with the people around you. But that kind of highlights what I want to talk about with health, which is that it's this sphere. And yes, perfect diet and calories and macros, and the foods have to be well sourced and, fuel my body and nourish my body. And yes, I should exercise regularly and, train properly to make my muscles strong and, help my hormones and my metabolism, all that stuff. And yes, I should have good sleep. But it's also friends, family. It's also enjoying the moment. Like, we can show that there's studies that will show that, orthorexics have worse health than a lot of average people. And orthorexic is someone that obsesses over food. So they've done the food part perfectly, but it's created so much of a stress, and it's also damaged so many of the other healthy things that, or the things that can contribute to your health. It's damaged so many of them that they have, poor outcomes. So in that context and understanding that, when we're going into the holidays, the part of our health that I think we should start with and understand that we're nourishing isn't so much the perfect diet and training and all that stuff, but rather the people around us, being in the moment, enjoying things in the present, palatability, food palatability, right? I've talked about in the past how that can be something that can be negative, or at least something that can cause negative behaviors. But there's also value to palatability. Like if I sit and eat something and really enjoy the experience, right? Especially if I'm sharing it with someone else, I think that's a positive thing. I think that contributes to health. I think there's a net positive there, at least in the context of what we're talking about. That's what we're focusing on, right? So I think that's an important thing to understand when you go into the holidays. It's also important to understand your own tendencies. And where, looking back when you're more, I guess, aware and saying, okay, this is where I tend to hurt myself a little bit, right? This is where I tend to make mistakes, or afterwards what I tend to regret. So, what are some things I can do to help myself in those situations? So I'll give you one example. One example is that when people tend to eat in ways that are not healthy in the entire sense, not just in the what you're eating, but rather how you're treating the food and what you're doing, you can sometimes gauge this by the speed at which people eat, right? You'll notice they're just eating very quickly. And so you can inject barriers between you and that impulse that can help with that. So an example would be, I'm at Christmas dinner. I'm going to enjoy myself, but if I want to have seconds, I'll give myself at least 15 minutes. Right. So I'm done with my plate. Ooh, that looks really good. Let me go grab that. I'll wait 15. I mean, the food's going to still be there. It's not a big deal. I'm supposed to be enjoying, or I want to enjoy the people around me anyway. So I'm going to give myself 15 minutes. Now, what does that 15-minute barrier do? Well, physiologically, signals of satiety and fullness may hit the brain and make you feel like, oh, I actually don't want to eat, or I'm actually full. If I eat any more, I'll hurt. But it's also a period of time that can bring a little bit of awareness, or at least interrupt an impulse, right? So I can, rather than reaching for the second plate, I know I got 15 minutes. And then in that 15-minute period of time, I might say to myself, actually, I think I'm okay. Or I think I'll have a little bit less than I thought, originally that I was going to get. So that's, one example. Another example, this is one that I do a lot, Max, is when I know I'm going to a family party and I know the kind of food that's going to be served. One thing that I have to have special consideration with myself, at least, is my gut health. I have a very sensitive gut, or it can be thrown off. And there's certain foods I need to avoid. And also having well-cooked vegetables always helps my digestion. If I know I'm going somewhere and they're not going to have that, then we will bring a dish that is that. And I'll bring it for everybody. And I'll make a nice dish, right? But it's something that I know I'm going to want to eat as well. And it feels good, right? I'm sharing with the people around me, but it's also helping me with something that I might need help with in these types of situations.
Now, do you mean that well-cooked vegetables do better for your digestion than raw vegetables, or it's the addition of well-cooked vegetables that support your digestion overall?
It's actually both.
Wow.
Raw vegetables can sometimes bother me. Well-cooked vegetables really well. If I eat a large meal, the well-cooked vegetables act, they help things to get moving, I guess. And it really does help my digestion. And I don't get as many of the negative effects that I would get if I didn't have it. It's just something I've learned about my body. And you may think about, somebody might say to themselves like, ooh, I'm going to be at this party and not going to be much protein. And I want to make sure I have some proteins with this. Let me make a dish for everybody. It's also nice. It feels good. I'm not bringing something just for myself, which makes it feel kind of weird and isolated. I bring it for everybody. And then I know there's something there that I want to eat.
Unless you're going to a vegan party.
Unless you're going to a vegan party, then I'll hide the steak in my pocket and eat it like that. Yeah. So those are two examples. I think another one, which is really good, is to pay attention to how much you're enjoying the meal while you're eating it, and communicating with the people around you about it. It tends to slow us down as well. It's funny because in other countries, so my family's from Italy, and I've visited family in Italy quite a few times. And I remember the first time, I was aware of this. So I went there as a real small kid, but then when I was 12, I noticed something. We would go to a restaurant, and the waiter wouldn't bring us the bill until we asked for it, which I thought was kind of weird. I remember I was sitting there with my parents, and I'm like, why aren't they bringing the bill yet? And my dad's like, well, we got to ask them for it. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, over here, they don't bring you the bill unless you ask for it. So you can sit here and enjoy your meal. I also noticed that the courses would come out way slower. Like they bring one course and then it's like 30 minutes. And then you have another course. I'd see the waiter go outside and smoke a cigarette and hang out with his buddies. And I'm like, why aren't they bringing us the food? And my dad's like, oh, it's, this is how we enjoy, in our culture, if they bring you all the food all at once, it's considered rude. You want to sit down and enjoy your meal. And so you kind of, you see that this enjoyment of the process of the food and the eating and the hanging out with the people around you. So do that at the holidays, like be aware and conscious of that. And it really does reduce the amount of, I don't know, for lack of a better term, damage you may do with food. I don't know if you've ever experimented with this, but I know, like for me, there's certain foods that encourage like this speed eating, impulsive type eating, like potato chips will do that to me. And I've actually done this where I noticed once that I was eating a chip and I was thinking about the one that was in my hand. And
I do that all the time.
Yeah.
I'm not proud of it.
Yeah. And I'm like, this is weird. I have one in my mouth. Like why don't I just enjoy the flavor of this one in my mouth rather than worrying about the next one? And I did that, actually enjoyed the food even more. And I've now, since, I've trained people for a while, this is something that I've noticed that gets people to eat less and slower. And they find that they just eat more appropriately without really even thinking about eating less. They're just, because they're slowing down and being present with the food, that they end up not eating as much. And I know there's studies that show that when people are not distracted while eating, because I think in being distracted, watching TV, being on your phone, that kind of stuff kind of does that, right? Takes you out of that space. That people will eat, I think it's like 10 or 15% more calories just by being distracted.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's slowing down while you're eating is so important. I mean, there's at least two mechanisms that I could think of that will really benefit your waistline just by slowing down eating. I mean, one, there was a study out of Japan that showed that slow eating compared to rapid eating, it was a study done in women, led to an increase in the thermal effect of feeding. So there was an increased thermic effect from slow from slow mastication. So just chewing, just slowing down while you're chewing. And then of course, there's that lag period that you mentioned earlier where, when your stomach is empty, it starts to, it secretes this hormone ghrelin, right? Which is the hunger hormone. And then when it's stretched, that hormone gets turned off. And so you have this feeling of satiety. There are other hormones involved, of course, but there's a bit of a delay in terms of when that turn off happens or when that message is communicated to the brain that that you finally found a meal, that you've got some food in your stomach. And slowing down while eating helps that message to be synced with real time with what it is that you're actually doing, which is eating.
Yes. And this is why all of us have experienced this. You'll eat and then you'll eat a lot. And then afterwards you hurt, and you're like, why did I eat? So obviously I ate more than I needed to. I ate past the point of being satisfied and I ate to the point of hurting myself. And that's because you ate fast. And that signal it didn't hit you until you got past the point of actually being satisfied. And then you ate too much. But if you slow down, you'll find that you'll eat less. Another thing that I like to tell people, and this is a general nutrition hack, but it works great on holidays as well. Along the lines of satiety, protein, of all the macronutrients, right? Of the three macronutrients, proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, proteins they do produce the most satiety. They give you the highest sense of fullness the fastest. Second would be fat, and then third would be carbohydrates. But proteins are far more effective at this than carbohydrates and fats. And for friends of mine that have gone on things like carnivore diets, they'll tell me, "Oh my gosh, I can't eat like that much." The protein it makes you feel full. So one thing you can do, and again, this is even general nutrition advice for someone, is when you are eating your meal, is to eat the protein first. Now, what's funny is we tend to eat in the reverse. You'll notice that at restaurants they serve bread first, or we'll have the starch come out first. I think that might, without realizing it, people might serve food that way because it helps us eat more. If you think about it, right? I mean, imagine if you're at a restaurant and they served you like steak instead of bread rolls. Right? You would order way less food, right? So eat the protein first, and then second, you can eat the vegetables, and then after that, you can eat the next thing and the next thing, and eat until you are satisfied but not full. And what you tend to find when you eat protein first is you tend to eat less than had you not eaten protein first. Also, from a health perspective, proteins and fat, and proteins typically come with fats. It's pretty rare that you'll go to a party and they'll serve you a pure protein dish. It's always something, an animal source, and typically has fats with it. Those macronutrients, proteins and fats, are essential, whereas carbohydrates are not essential. So from a eating the essential macronutrients first perspective in terms of health, it also makes sense. But you will eat less. You typically will eat less when you eat the protein before you aim for the other foods, especially the starches and carbohydrates and desserts. That doesn't mean you won't. It just tends to help people eat a little bit less. Another thing that I do, Max, and I've been doing this now, this will be year number 13. And this is kind of a tradition I think some people have, but I think there's a lot of value in it, is I like to have some kind of a, ritualized physical activity with family on the holidays. Now, I think a lot of families do, like they'll play football outside and stuff like that. I love that. What I like to do, and I've done it now, so I think year 12 or 13, is I get my cousins together. There's 9 of us. So we're all men right around the same age. And we'll all do a workout the morning of like Thanksgiving, for example. We did this. And it's really just time to hang out with each other. I mean, we're working out, but it's bonding. It's fun. We enjoy the conversation. That's the important thing, I think. You could do like a family hike, take your aunt or your cousin. And it's funny when you now, don't present it like a workout, by the way. This is this will help. If I tell everybody, hey, we're going to go get this hard workout, it's not going to show up. And that's not the goal. I'm not trying to trick them, but I'll say, hey, everybody, you guys want to go on a big walk after dinner, or let's do a hike the morning of as a family. And you just enjoy the activity and hang out together. And it gives you that extra movement, those extra steps, or the extra movement that might help a little bit with at least some of the, maybe some of the negative effects of enjoying the food and drink around you on the holidays.
Yeah. I mean, walking is so valuable, and it's sort of underappreciated because it's like such a mundane act, right? Like you're walking from the time you're 2 years old, but it's such a powerful way of dissipating calories, of normalizing blood sugar, particularly in the postprandial, post-meal state. Mm-hmm. So I love this advice about just getting out and walking.
Yeah. You know what I like about walking as well? It's one of my favorite recommended forms of exercise. Of course, resistance training is the thing I always talk about, but I think I love injecting walking into your day, ritualizing it with meals, doing it with the people around you. But one of the main reasons why I like walking so much is it's the one physical activity that most people can do, right? Most people, if they don't work out or they don't exercise regularly, like I'm not going to take my aunt out for a run. I mean, she might try to run, but because she doesn't have the skill of running and she's not proficient at it, risk of injury is high, and everybody could walk. Most people could walk. And so it's a great way. And also we don't need to change into different clothes, and we don't need equipment for it. It's a great way to have awesome conversation. It's a great way to think. It's such an underrated form of exercise and activity. And so I like family walks on holidays. After the meal, family walk is amazing. I'll get my family together and I'll tell my aunts, hey, listen, I'll help you guys with the dishes, but let's do a walk. Let's all go outside and hang out a little bit and go for a nice walk. And everybody has a great time, and it's a lot of fun. And it gives you that activity, gets you to move a little bit away from sitting there, all right, what do I do now? Let me grab some more pie and another glass of wine or whatever. So we go for we go for that family walk. And like I said, this is year 13 now. I do this workout with my cousins, and it's just an absolute blast. We all look forward to it. We all have kids now. So the wives hang out, and we all train, and they'll bring the kids, and it's a total blast.
Hey, if you like that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.
And I think that when we focus on muscle tissue as the organ of longevity, as our number one priority, then we're talking about real root cause medicine. Fat tissue comes later. That's focused again on pathology. If we focus on pathology, we're chasing our tail. Because that's the example in medicine. In medicine, they always focus on pathology. But solution-based eating is really muscle-centric.